In my brand new 30 Days to Round Challenge, you are going to learn exactly how to get your horse supple through and correctly engaging their hind end and top line. I remember when I first started out riding and I just could not get my horse round. I was really frustrated, so was my horse. In my gut, I knew that I was doing something seriously wrong, but I just didn't know what to do to teach my horse to accept the bit. In 30 Days to Round, I'm going to teach you exactly that. Over 30 step-by-step exercises where I show you exactly what you need to do to teach your horse to get round. Not only that, but I let you in on a little secret of mine where I show you specific groundwork exercises so that you can teach your horse how to accept the contact and get round before you even get in the saddle. With our private Facebook group, we're going to be supporting you with live Q&A sessions. We'll be watching your videos and offering other fun activities to help keep you motivated and give you all of the support and hand-holding that you need to achieve your goal of getting your horse supple, round, soft, and using their top line. This challenge includes a $2,150 prize fund. That's right, you could win up to $1,000 just for teaching your horse to get round and accept the contact. Click the link below and join today. I really look forward to working with you and helping you along in your training journey.
Regardless of what your biggest struggle is in your riding, working on contact, working on the connection is going to help you to solve that problem, because contact and connection at a very basic level is about communicating with your horse and getting control of your horse's body and your horse's mind, which is extremely important, number one, to stay safe, and number two, so that you can enjoy your ride. But I want to help you understand about how to communicate with your horses, how to have a better relationship with your horse. Contact and connection is something that is very basic in the sense that you need it to be able to turn, stop, and go. But it's also something that you're always working on. So even if you're a more upper level rider, contact and connection is what allows you to do the complicated movements. It's also what allows you to have expression. So like when you watch the Olympics or the World Cup and those horses have so much expression in their movements, that is because of contact and connection. Let's start out with what is contact. So in the most basic terms, contact refers to the situation in which the reins are stretched in a straight line between the mouth of the horse and the hands of the rider with no loop. Why contact? So why do we start with contact? The reason that we start with contact is because when you can control your horse's pull, you can control their brain. So the horse's pull is up there at the top of their head. When you put the bridle on your horse, the top part of your bridle goes across the horse's pull. That is basically the connection between your horse's neck and your horse's head. And this is a really important juncture because there's a lot of nerves that connect here. And so when you're able to control your horse's pull, you're able to control what their brain is doing. Now, how do you teach your horse to accept the contact? This is where a lot of us get stuck. We end up kicking and pulling, our hands hurt, our shoulders are tight, we get holes in our gloves. And it's really important to go back to the basics and to teach your horse to give to the pressure of the bit. You always, always, always want to start the photo on the left there. You start by teaching your horse to bend. So at a very basic level, if I'm standing on the left side of my horse and I take the left rein, I apply pressure on the left rein. I want my horse to turn his head to the left. When he turns his head to the left, there's a release of the pressure, and then you repeat that over and over again. So whenever you start feeling like your horse is confused or like there's too much pressure there, you have to go back to something very, very simple, which is that When I take on the bit, the horse gives, and then they get a release from pressure. So this is where contact gets a little more complicated. According to the FEI, contact is the soft, steady connection between the rider's hand and the horse's mouth. The horse should go rhythmically forward from the rider's driving aids and seek contact with the rider's hands, thus going into the contact. The horse seeks the contact and the rider provides the contact. So contact for riding, we have to do it while we're moving. So it's not just about standing still, it's about while you're going forward, being able to control your horse's neck and control your horse's pull. Oftentimes, we all end up doing way too much with our hands. That's kind of human instinct because everything in our life is all about our hands, whether you're texting or typing or driving. Most of what you do in life is with your hands. When you ride, you want to do most of your aids come from your seat and your legs into a forward feeling hand. So you have to create the energy into your hand in order to establish contact. So direct rein aid. I would say about 90% of the time when you're riding, you should be using a direct rein aid to establish contact. A direct rein aid means that there's a straight line from your elbow to the horse's mouth. The reason that you want to ride with direct rein aid is because it allows you to be most effective, and it also allows you to have a supple and following contact. So if your hands are too low and your arms are locked out, that makes your arms stiff. And your horse's contact is a mirror of your arm. So if your arm is straight and stiff, guess what? Your horse is going to be stiff. If your hands are too high, sometimes that can cause your horse to curl. If you're using indirect rein aids and your hand is going across the horse's neck, that's usually a sign that your horse isn't listening correctly to your leg. So those are some of the most common mistakes. So do you find that your reins are constantly getting longer? I had a student once that said that she didn't understand her reins were just like magically growing all the time. So the way that you keep your reins short is that you make a rooftop shape with your thumb and you push your thumb down onto your pointer finger and you hold your rein there. So this is what keeps your reins from slipping, is pushing down between your thumb and your pointer finger. This is really important. You don't want to grip with your hand because you want your fingers to be able to supple on the bit. So let's talk about the sequence of the aids. First, you use your fingers. Second, you use your wrists. Then you use your elbows. This is super, super important. This is what allows you to have forward feeling hands. If you have trouble with your horse going forward, or if your horse won't seek the contact, it's probably because you're going to your elbow right away. So how do you do that? Every horse you have to train a little bit differently. And like I mentioned, there's a formula that I use with every single horse to train them how to accept the contact. Within that formula, you have to change things a little bit based on your horse's instinct. If you have a horse that's too strong, it takes two to pull. So if you have a horse that's too strong, you've got to be, what that photo is showing is steady on the outside rein. You're going to kind of vibrate and give a little bit on the inside rein. You're going to think about being really connected in your seat and your legs, and then having an independent hand. But it takes two to pull. So if your horse is strong, you're going to supple them, but you're not going to hang on your horse because they're just going to pull against you. I guarantee that your skinny little arm is not going to win in an arm wrestle with your horse's neck. So don't try to do that. Now, if your horse is too light, on the other hand, if you have a horse that curls and is empty in the contact, you really want to provide a steady and quiet hand. So you want, like with a strong horse, you're a little bit more moving the bit in their mouth if they lean on you. With a horse that's too light, you want to be really maintaining a steady contact. And that your hands are quiet and like that image of you're holding a kid's hand, and you want to teach your horse to accept that soft contact. You also really want to think about your seat, because if your seat isn't good enough, that's going to cause your hands to be unsteady. And if your horse is already too light, they're just going to drop the bit and not go to the contact. If you have a horse that's uneven in the rein contact, so if you have a horse that's either strong on the left rein or strong on the right rein, this is normally it can be caused by you, the rider. Like, for example, if you're right-handed, maybe you hang on the right rein. I love to hang on my left rein. I'm left-handed. But it can also be caused by an asymmetry in your horse. So in general, like in this photo, let's say your horse is too strong on the right rein. What you're going to do is you're going to put your right leg on your horse. You're going to push your horse from the right leg into the left rein. So you want to hold the rein that the horse doesn't want to take. You're going to hold that left rein, and then you're going to supple and give on the right rein. So you have to give on the rein that the horse is strong on and take on the rein that the horse is light on. This issue right here is a very difficult issue to fix. It's something that I really struggled with my first Grand Prix horse. He was really strong on the left rein, and I was convinced that if I just kept pulling on the left rein, that one day he would give to it, but that does not work. So now we've talked about contact, so we're moving on to connection. Connection is acceptance of the bit through acceptance of the aid. So connection is where we start thinking about the whole horse's body. Connection is also the third level of the dressage training scale. So it's really an important part of the dressage basics. Connection is about this circle of energy. So the energy generated in the hindquarters by the driving aids. So connection starts from the rider's leg. So you put your leg on, you create energy in your horse's hind legs. When you apply your leg, that should go back to the horse's hind legs. And then that energy should flow up through your horse's back, through your horse's neck, and then back to your hands. Let's see, I'll finish reading this definition. The contact to the bit must be elastic and adjustable, creating fluent interaction between the horse and rider with appropriate changes in the horse's outline. Connection is super hard. And, kind of what this definition alludes to is this energy, this circle of energy between the horse and the rider, and it adjusts. Sometimes you have more energy, sometimes you have less energy, sometimes in an extension, the frame might get a little longer, and then you might have to shorten that frame for collection. But this circle of energy always has to stay energized, and it is really, really hard to do well. So this image illustrates the difference between contact and connection. So contact is basically from your elbow to the horse's mouth. Connection is the whole entire horse's body and that whole circle of energy. So you get contact first when you have, like when I start a young horse, or when I get a horse that hasn't ever accepted the contact or hasn't done dressage first. First, I start with contact, then I start working on connection. Your rider position is a huge part of connection, and in particular, your seat. So when I was reading 500 emails this morning from you guys telling me about your problems, a lot of you guys struggle with your transitions, with maintaining steady contact during the transitions. And oftentimes this issue originates from your seat. The purpose of your seat is to absorb and follow the motion of your horse. It requires a lot of skill and strength and flexibility to have a good seat. This is a photo here of Charlotte Dujardin riding Belegro, and her seat is amazing. Like, if you need some inspiration, go watch Charlotte and Belegro. What you'll notice is that during transitions, whether it's an upward transition or a downward transition, her seat really absorbs the motion of her horse. And this allows her hands to stay independent so that when her horse goes forward, she doesn't accidentally pull back. That's one thing that I see happen a lot of times is you guys will apply your leg. We all do it. Like I'll do it too sometimes. You apply your leg, your horse goes forward, your seat isn't there, and you pull on your horse. And then we wonder why our horse doesn't go forward. Or in the downward transitions, the most common thing is that you tip forward. So in the canter trot transition, a lot of times, because the horse is decelerating, that throws you forward. And so connection is really about developing your seat. And your connection is only as good as your seat is able to stay connected to your horse's back. Okay, so we've talked about contact, connection, now roundness. Has your trainer ever told you that your horse needs to be rounder? Let me know in the chat. Why is that important and how do you get it? Obviously, contact and connection create roundness. So that's why I started with contact and connection. Roundness really is about when you look at your horse's top line, like when you look at their neck, that there's an upward arc to their neck. Like that's how you know if your horse is round. If you look down at your horse's neck, you should see an upward arc. The reason that we want that arc in the horse's neck is that it also helps them to lift up in their back so that they can carry you, the rider, better. So roundness is about creating a flow of energy between the horse and the rider. Physical roundness creates a mental state in which your horse is willing and focused on the rider's aids. And that's really important. So roundness, it does create this physical look of roundness in your horse, but it also really gets your horse mentally thinking with you. And focusing on you, the rider. And that is really, really important. If your horse isn't round, you're hurting them. And this is important to really understand a little bit about your horse's anatomy and why it is actually more comfortable both for the horse and for the rider when your horse is round. So the photo there on the bottom is a photo of kissing spine. So those are the horse's vertebrae, and you can see the blue arrows show where the vertebrae are actually pressing against each other. And you can imagine that that is very uncomfortable for the horse. Horses sometimes are born with kissing spine, but it can also be created when your horse goes around too hollow and not correctly using themselves. When your horse lifts up their back and when they round up in their back, that allows there to be more space in the vertebrae. So that's the skeletal side of things. Now, if you look at the photo over here on the right, what you'll see here is you want to look at this longissimus muscle. So that's what we call the long back muscle, which basically goes from the horse's poll and it connects all the way back at the horse's pelvis. So we want the horse to lift and engage this muscle when we're riding them, because when they engage this long back muscle, then we're sitting on our horse's muscles, as opposed to just basically sitting on their ribs or their spine, which you can imagine that it's got to be uncomfortable for a horse to carry our weight directly on their ribs. So we want to develop their back muscle so that they can more comfortably carry us. So let's talk about roundness through the levels. Are you ever done working on contact or connection or roundness? And the answer is no. So it's something that you're always working on refining. This is Jessica Van Brendel and Delara and Lottie Fry and Glamourdale. These girls are both such an inspiration to watch them ride and to watch their horses. As you move up the levels, you're always working on refining the connection and getting your horse rounder and really using themselves. And that's what allows these horses to perform really difficult movements. And it's also what allows them to have so much expression, like where they really pick their feet up and they have a lot of suspension. They've been working on, like Lottie Fry's been riding Glamourdale since he was 6. And so it's years and years of training to develop this and refine this. And it also develops the horse's muscles and the horse's body. So when you ride them round and connected, it starts to layer on those muscles on the horse's top line so that they can do the movements mentally in your horse, that they're more willing and they're more focused. And then physically for your horse is what allows you to do the things you want to do. So when your horse is round, you can turn, you can stop, you can make a circle, you can ride transitions, and it helps get your horse's body organized in a way that it is possible for them to do those things. When your horse is hollow and stiff, it's really hard for them to stop. It's hard for them to turn. It's hard for them to carry your weight and manage your weight during a transition.